Hello everyone, Sergeant 274 here. Early this morning I was able to play the Dark Souls 2 beta, the network test version. I was one of the lucky ones that got a code at 2 a.m. in the morning. I set an alarm to wake up at that time, hopped on my PS3, and followed the steps to redeem the code and access the network test. So I was able to play that last night for about 3 hours. It was scheduled for 2 hours, but FromSoft apparently allowed us an extra hour, which was really nice because I could have played that game for 13 hours, hell, 30 hours straight. I mean, it was a lot of fun. So I highly recommend that if you didn't get in the last beta, when the new one comes out, it's supposed to have 30,000 plus people in that one, that you redeem the code on PSN and participate, because it was a very, very enjoyable experience. Even if it was from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. I was not tired at all at the end of it. I was hyped. I wanted to play some more. Anyways, this video is just going to show off, well, not show off, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about what I saw and my impressions of Dark Souls 2 as it is now in the network test version. I'm going to go over 3 quick areas: gameplay, some of the enemies, and then the different classes. First and foremost, I want to go over gameplay because that's the bulk of the game, obviously. Excuse me. But it's obvious to me that lighting and the use of torches is going to be very important. In the small area that was the beta, there were at least 2, maybe 3 areas where it was pretty much pitch black and you would be well advised to use a torch. Now, I didn't use a torch in some of those areas just because I'm not used to having one in my left hand. Yeah, that's going to be an integral part of the game, and I'm sure there's going to be many, many more areas where a torch is going to either prevent you from falling off a cliff or alerting you to an enemy before they aggro on you. Whereas if you don't have the torch, you just walk up to them, and next thing you know, hey, there's an enemy here, which happened to me a few times in the beta. But let's see, what else? Backstabs and parrying. Okay, if you're a Dark Souls veteran or even a beginner that's gotten decent at the game, you'll have no problems transitioning over to Dark Souls 2, at least in my opinion. The backstabs and the parries are pretty much the same. The only difference is, at least for the backstabs, is that enemy AI makes it harder for you to circle around them to get a backstab. The enemies that I came across, most of them, if not all of them, could be backstabbed. It was just a matter of positioning yourself. And unlike Dark Souls, where it's pretty easy to get behind an enemy, it was not so easy in Dark Souls 2. It is possible, it's just going to take a little more effort. But the process works the same. You get behind them, press R1, and yes, it's a different animation, but it's pretty much the same fundamental. Parrying. It works. I was able to parry a few times last night. I practiced it quite a bit. It's just a matter of timing. In all honesty, you have to time your parry correctly, and obviously with new enemies, you're going to have to, learn those enemies' moveset or attacks before you can successfully parry on a frequent basis. Now, as far as after you parry, unlike Dark Souls, I'm sure you've seen videos of this, the enemy gets knocked to their knees. You have to wait for a second or two, and then once the enemy is on their knees, then you press R1 for the riposte, and it's pretty good animation for the parry and riposte. It's pretty sweet, especially with a different weapon type. So that's a neat component. Let's see, what else in gameplay? Instead of fog gates, they're called mist doors or something. It says enter the mist if you want to, challenge a boss. There is no more kicking. At least I couldn't find it. You used to be able to press up and then R1 and it would kick. No longer is it a kick. When you do that, it is now kind of a shoulder thrust into a backhand. Like he kind of charges with his right shoulder and then backhand slaps or forearms the enemy. So same effect for the most part. Jumping is also different. There's a dedicated button to jumping. Instead of running like in Dark Souls and then pressing the run button again really quickly to jump, you have to run and then you have to click the left stick, which for me was a little difficult at first because you use the left stick to control which direction your character is moving, obviously. So to control direction and click that while keeping it precisely, in line with where you want to jump was a little difficult. But I'm sure the more you do it, the more acclimated and less trouble you'll have doing that. The stun animation to me, like when you run out of poise, or if your shield stability, you block enough times and then it wears out your stamina. That animation, the stun animation, to me seemed like it was a little bit longer or different than the one in Dark Souls, but I can't be certain of that. It just jumped out to me. Also, for gameplay, there's a couple items, life gems, and there's different tiers of life gems. There's a normal life gem, and then there's ones that restore more health. So that's in addition to, obviously, the Estus flasks. There's also items to recharge your spell charges, I guess. So if you have 20 soul arrows, you can eat one of these, whatever it was called, and it will grant you more spell castings. Also, there were a couple hidden passages that I found, and instead of rolling through them or breaking them down, they were concrete, kind of like slabs. I pressed X and that opened the door. So I don't know if you'll be able to roll through or break through anything secretive, but the ones I found you actually had to press X for. Let's see, what else? Yes, there was a chest, a hard to get to chest, and I thought, well, it was in the dark again, and I thought, well, maybe this is a mimic. I whacked it, it wasn't a mimic, but as soon as I opened the chest, poison came out, and I was poisoned, and of course I didn't have any poison control or poison curing items at the time. So I died, but I got what was in the chest. So it looks like there's going to be some different types of chests or traps kind of waiting for you in the form of poison chests, and who knows what else they'll think of. Also, I wanted to mention blue phantoms. You've heard of this, that blue phantoms can be summoned when someone else's world gets invaded. Well, that was true of the warrior. I'll get to the warrior later, but the warrior had a special ring on him that said he would be summoned right away, which basically meant the warrior class, or the warrior at least in this, was a blue phantom, and I got summoned quite a bit as a blue phantom to help out the host by killing an invader. Now, just real interesting, and I didn't know this, blue phantoms, when they enter the host's world, cannot attack enemies and cannot be attacked by enemies. The only person that they can attack is the invader. So that was kind of interesting. Also, when you're helping, when you're a phantom in someone else's world, you can use life gems and Estus and all that good stuff. There's no restriction on healing items. Alright, on to enemies. I'm sure you've seen videos of the beta, but the enemy that stood out was the bigger guys across the bridge, who have the dual kind of like shotels on there, and it stood out to me because I had a 100% physical shield block on, and they would hit me and it would chip away at my health, just like the shotels. So that was kind of interesting. There was a return of like the grave lords or the grave keepers, whatever you want to call them, the necromancers, whatever, the people you have to kill in order to permanently kill the skeletons. They were back. Also, before, there were 2 boss fights that I took part in, and I ended up eventually beating both bosses and then helping people beat the bosses as well, and that was a lot of fun. The first boss, I don't remember its name. I'm sure you can find a video of it. But it's the one where they have a few, it looks like witches or something like that, running around shooting black magic at you, and there's a bunch of skeletons and those bone shield skeletons rolling around. That was an interesting fight. There was just a lot going on. But it was really good to have some summons in there to help out with all the enemies. Second boss was the Executioner's Chariot, and on the way to the Executioner's Chariot, in order to get to that boss fight, you have to pass this kind of valley, and there's a bunch of red phantoms that jump out at you. And if you take them on like I did one-on-one, you should be able to backstab them and kill them off. But if you let them swarm up on you, you're going to die like I did the first time. But I just wanted to mention that after you kill red phantoms, they do not respawn. So that was kind of promising, because if you die, you don't want to have to go back through another 4 or 5 red phantoms, and then you got a big night red phantom right in front of the mist gate there. And then the Executioner's Chariot was the second boss fight there. That's the one where they're riding around on a horse, the Executioner, in a circular motion. And I won't give anything away, but that was a very fun boss fight. And yeah, I really enjoyed the enemies. They had enemies, you know, from the low-level trash enemies, basically, that just sit there and are docile until you attack them. And then they had some higher-level, more aggressive enemies, you know, like the red phantoms, and right before that area as well. Alright, now quickly I just wanted to go over the classes. The soldier class is the first one they had there. I played maybe 5 minutes of that class. It just wasn't interesting to me, honestly. But it's, you know, your basic soldier, I guess. I mean, spear and sword and a 100% physical block shield. It just wasn't that fun for me. They also had the hunter class. I literally played maybe 3 minutes of that class until I realized all it had was a freaking little short sword and a short bow, and that was... I played with a bow a little bit, and that's all I did. The bow aim and controls are a little different, but it doesn't take much to pick up on them. The next class I tried out was the sorcerer. It was okay. I mean, some of the sorceries are kind of neat. The thing that struck me as interesting with the sorcerer was that the shield that he was wearing on the left hand allowed him to heal. So the sorcerer could actually use a heal spell, and not just, you know, like in Dark Souls, it would be magic. But he was able to use a heal spell off his shield. So that was kind of neat. The other spells you'll find out when you get to play it. But some neat stuff, but nothing that I really use or wanted to use in the beta. All right, on to the let's go with the Temple Knight. The Temple Knight I used for a little bit. Probably, I don't know. I went to one boss with him, and then I got summoned because I put my summon sign down, and it came with a halberd, a crescent axe, and then like a mace that cast the miracles. He had a miracle heal. He had a hex called War, I think it was. And then also, it was interesting, the Tower Knight had Dark Orb. You could actually cast dark magic with the Temple Knight, not Tower Knight, excuse me, the Temple Knight. So that was kind of neat. My favorite weapon that the Temple Knight had was a Crescent Axe. I think that was actually a really good weapon. It was pretty powerful and had a pretty good moveset. It was pretty quick. So I did enjoy playing the Temple Knight. Next on the list was the Dual Swordsman. This I spent quite a bit of time on, because I wanted to see how quick the attacks were and what the type of play style is that you're going to have to incorporate if you use a dual swordsman. And to my surprise, I really enjoyed it. Usually I like having I like a fast character but with a shield so I can block. This dual swordsman has a shield if you want to use it, but it's not 100% physical block, so to me it really didn't do anything. So I kept the dual daggers out, or whatever, short swords, I think it was daggers, that he had out, and the attacks are very quick. L1, L2, R1, R2 are all attacks. There is no parry, at least with that incarnation of the dual swordsman, or with the weapons he was wielding. There is no parry, it's just all attack. So you have to be fast. It's kind of a hit and run, but on the lower level enemies you could just keep hitting the enemies, and they would not get a chance to retaliate or counterattack. So that was pretty simple. It's the bigger enemies like that Dual Shotel type guy where you'd have to hit him and then, you know, roll away and then come back, attack, and rinse and repeat a little bit. Or you could, because he's fast, you could kind of get a backstab in there a little easier. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. The Dual Swordsman was definitely a lot of fun. I saw a lot of people trying that one out with their phantoms and whatnot. So the one I used the most, though, because it was just the most comfortable for me. New game, you know, new area. I wanted to go with something I'm comfortable with, and that was the Warrior. The Warrior had good stats and looked pretty cool in my mind, and had a big old greatsword. And what makes it even better is I found the Zweihander, whatever you want to call it, and I bumped up my stats so I could get enough strength to carry the Zweihander, and that's what I rock and rolled with. Backstabbing people with it, parrying, riposting with it, crushing the bosses with the Zweihander. So it was pretty cool. There were a lot of co-op and invasions too, but it was a good experience. And yeah, at least for me, playing through as the Warrior, I felt the most comfortable. Obviously, your play style will change, and obviously when I get the game, I'm usually never a warrior. I'm more of a speedy dex katana type guy. But I didn't see any katanas or any weapons like that in this game. At least not in the beta. Obviously they're going to be there. There were tons of weapon categories, but not everyone was filled or had an option in it. Which comes to the last thing, the interface. The interface of the game is a little different. Obviously it's not a finished product yet, but you should be able to pick it up rather quickly. It was a lot of fun. The movements, I thought, were a little more smooth, especially the running movement. It seemed like I was running more naturally or running faster than I was in Dark Souls or Demon Souls. But all in all, I really enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, give me a holla. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. I really enjoyed my time with Dark Souls 2. I cannot wait until March when it comes out. I'm going to be on vacation when the next beta is out later this month, so this is the last time I'll get to play it, I believe, until release. So yeah, like I said, guys, if you if you'd like to try it out, it's a great experience, and with even more people online for the next round of testing, I'm sure it's going to be a blast. So check out Facebook and Twitter, and when that code gets out there or is posted, hop on your PSN, put it in there, and sign up and download the client so you can play the game. I'm telling you, it's going to make you sad though once the time's over, because you know it's going to be a few months before you can play it again. But it looks like a lot of fun. If you like Demon Souls, if you like Dark Souls, they haven't strayed from the winning formula at all. You're going to like Dark Souls 2, and the best thing is you're going to be able to pick it up and play it right away and have a good time, not have to sit there and fumble through controls. The menu is a little different, but it's familiar enough to a veteran Dark Souls player. So, alright, that's all I really wanted to say about it. I had a great time, and thank you for listening to me, and I will see you later. Adios, Umbasa.